My wife asked for a hall pass to sleep with her ex who cheated on her, and when I agreed on the condition of divorce, she realized too late that he never wanted her back. I never thought my wife would ask me for permission to cheat on me, but that's exactly what happened 3 months ago. My name is Troy, and I'm a 35-year-old software architect. I was married to Nicole for 7 years, and up until that conversation, I thought we had a solid relationship built on trust and commitment. Nicole and I met when we were both 26 years old through mutual friends at a barbecue. She was smart, funny, and beautiful. We dated for 2 years before I proposed, and our wedding was everything we had dreamed of. The first few years of marriage were genuinely happy. We bought a house together, traveled when we could, and talked about starting a family soon. Nicole worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative, which meant she traveled occasionally for conferences and client meetings. I trusted her completely and never worried about her being away. She would call me every night when she was traveling, send me photos of where she was, and always seemed eager to get back home to me. About 6 months ago, Nicole started acting differently. She became more secretive with her phone, taking it everywhere including the bathroom. She started working out more intensely and buying new clothes that were more revealing than her usual style. She was also on her phone constantly, texting and smiling at the screen before quickly putting it away when I entered the room. I asked her several times if everything was okay, and she always assured me that work was just stressful and she was trying to take better care of herself. I wanted to believe her, so I pushed down my concerns and tried to be supportive. I helped more around the house, planned date nights, and did everything I could to strengthen our connection. Then came the conversation that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening, and I had just gotten home from work. Nicole was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine. She looked nervous, and when I asked what was wrong, she said she needed to talk to me about something important. She started by saying she loved me and valued our marriage, which immediately made me nervous because nothing good ever follows that kind of opening. Then she told me that her ex-boyfriend Jeremy had reached out to her on social media a few months ago. Jeremy was someone she had dated for 3 years before we met, and according to Nicole, he had cheated on her with multiple women before she finally left him. She said Jeremy had been apologizing profusely and explaining how he had grown and changed over the years. He told her he regretted losing her and that cheating on her was the biggest mistake of his life. He said he had been in therapy working on his issues and wanted to make amends for how he had treated her. Nicole admitted they had been talking regularly for the past 4 months. She said it started innocently with him apologizing and her accepting his apology to get closure. But then they kept talking, and old feelings started resurfacing. She said she found herself thinking about him constantly and wondering what it would be like to be with him now that he had supposedly changed. I sat there in shock as my wife told me she still had feelings for her ex-boyfriend. But it got worse. She said she had been losing sleep over these feelings and had come up with what she thought was a solution. She wanted me to give her a hall pass, a free pass to sleep with Jeremy one time so she could get him out of her system and move on with our marriage. She actually said those words. She wanted permission to have sex with another man, specifically her ex who had cheated on her, so she could get closure and come back to me ready to fully commit to our marriage. She said it wasn't about me, that I was a wonderful husband, but she needed to do this or she would always wonder what if. I asked her if she was serious, and she nodded. She had tears in her eyes and kept saying she knew it was a lot to ask but she was being honest with me instead of just cheating behind my back. She said that had to count for something, that her honesty showed how much she respected me and our marriage. I stood up and walked around the kitchen, trying to process what I was hearing. My wife of 7 years, the woman I had built a life with, was asking for my blessing to sleep with her ex-boyfriend. The man who had cheated on her repeatedly and broken her heart was suddenly someone she needed to be with one more time. I asked her what would happen if I said no. She was quiet for a moment before saying she didn't know. She said she hoped I would understand and give her this one thing, but she couldn't promise she wouldn't think about Jeremy constantly if I refused. The implication was clear: either I agreed to this hall pass, or she would resent me for keeping her from Jeremy, possibly even cheat anyway. I told her I needed time to think about it and went to stay at my friend Kevin's house for the night. Kevin had been my best friend since college and was happily married with 2 kids. When I told him what Nicole had asked for, he was furious on my behalf. He said asking for a hall pass was essentially asking for permission to blow up the marriage, and that Nicole was already emotionally cheating if not physically. Kevin's wife Amanda overheard our conversation and joined us. She said that no woman who truly loved and respected her husband would ask for something like this. She pointed out that Nicole's reasoning made no sense because sleeping with Jeremy wouldn't give her closure, it would just open the door to an affair. Amanda said Nicole was trying to manipulate me into giving her permission so she wouldn't feel guilty about what she had already decided to do. Their perspective helped me see the situation more clearly. Nicole had been emotionally involved with Jeremy for months. The changes in her behavior, the secrecy with her phone, the new clothes and increased attention to her appearance, it was all for him. She was asking for a hall pass because she wanted to sleep with Jeremy but didn't want to see herself as a cheater. She wanted my permission so she could maintain her self-image as a good person while betraying our marriage. I spent 2 days at Kevin's house thinking about everything. I called my brother Lucas, who had been through a divorce 5 years earlier. He told me that asking for a hall pass was a massive red flag and that the marriage was likely already over. He said I needed to protect myself legally and emotionally because Nicole had shown me exactly where her priorities were. I also called a divorce attorney named Richard to understand my options. He said that while emotional affairs were harder to prove than physical ones, Nicole's request for a hall pass showed clear intent to commit adultery. He advised me to document everything and to seriously consider whether I wanted to stay in a marriage where my wife was openly expressing desire for another man. After 2 days of reflection, I made my decision. I went back home and found Nicole anxiously waiting for me. She had been texting constantly asking when I was coming back and whether I had made a decision. When I walked in, she immediately started talking about how much she had missed me and how she knew we could work through this together. I cut her off and told her my answer. I said I would agree to give her the hall pass on one condition, that we file for divorce immediately. I told her she was free to pursue Jeremy without any guilt or obligation to me, and I was free to find someone who actually wanted to be married to me. Nicole's face went pale. She said that wasn't what she wanted, that she wanted to stay married to me. I told her she couldn't have both. I said if she needed to sleep with Jeremy to get closure, then clearly she wasn't committed to our marriage and I wasn't going to sit around waiting to be her second choice. I told her the hall pass came with divorce papers, and she needed to decide which was more important to her. She started crying and saying I was being unfair, that I was punishing her for being honest. She said she had come to me with her feelings instead of just cheating, and I was throwing away our marriage instead of working through it with her. I told her that asking to cheat wasn't the same as working through problems, and that her honesty didn't make the request any less of a betrayal. I gave her 24 hours to decide. Either we would file for divorce and she could pursue Jeremy guilt-free, or she would cut off all contact with Jeremy immediately, go to individual and marriage counseling with me, and work on rebuilding the trust she had destroyed. But if she chose to stay in the marriage, I would never agree to a hall pass, and if I found out she was still in contact with Jeremy, I would file for divorce immediately. Nicole spent the entire night crying and calling her friends and her mother for advice. I could hear her on the phone in the guest room explaining the situation and asking what she should do. I felt numb, like I was watching my marriage dissolve in real time and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Update 1. The next morning, Nicole came to me with her decision. She said she wanted to stay married and would cut off contact with Jeremy immediately. She apologized for even asking for the hall pass and said she had been confused and stupid. She blamed it on stress at work and said she hadn't been thinking clearly. She promised to go to therapy and do whatever it took to fix our marriage. I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. She seemed more panicked about losing the security of our marriage than genuinely remorseful about hurting me. But I decided to give her a chance. I told her she needed to show me the message she sent to Jeremy ending things, and that I wanted access to her phone and social media accounts to verify she was keeping her word. She hesitated at first, which told me everything I needed to know, but eventually agreed. She sent Jeremy a message saying she had made a mistake by reconnecting with him and needed to focus on her marriage. She said she wished him well but they couldn't be in contact anymore. Then she blocked him on all platforms while I watched. We started both individual and couples therapy the following week. My therapist, Dr. Harrison, helped me process the betrayal and work through my feelings about whether the marriage could be saved. Nicole's therapist was working with her on understanding why she had sought validation from her ex and what was missing in her life that made her vulnerable to his attention. In couples therapy, Nicole talked about how she had never fully gotten over Jeremy and had idealized their relationship in her memory. She admitted that when he reached out apologizing and claiming to have changed, it awakened feelings she thought she had buried. She said she had been living in a fantasy where Jeremy was the one who got away, and my existence in her life had become an obstacle to exploring that fantasy. Our therapist pointed out that Nicole had been emotionally unfaithful throughout the entire 4 months she had been talking to Jeremy. She explained that asking for a hall pass was an attempt to retroactively get permission for an emotional affair that had already been happening. She said rebuilding trust would take time and complete transparency from Nicole. For the first month, things seemed to be improving. Nicole was more attentive, more affectionate, and seemed genuinely committed to repairing our relationship. She gave me full access to her devices and accounts. We had date nights every week. We talked more openly about our feelings and our relationship. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Nicole seemed performative in her affection, like she was following a script rather than genuinely reconnecting with me. She was saying and doing all the right things, but there was an emptiness behind it that I couldn't quite articulate. 2 months after she had asked for the hall pass, I discovered why. I had been checking her social media accounts periodically as we had agreed, but she had been careful not to contact Jeremy through any of the platforms I had access to. What I didn't know was that she had created a new Instagram account under a fake name specifically to continue communicating with him. I only found out because I borrowed her work laptop one evening when mine was updating. She had left Instagram open in her browser, logged into an account I didn't recognize. The profile picture was a random landscape photo, but when I clicked on the messages, I saw months of communication between Nicole and Jeremy. They had never stopped talking. The day after she sent that message blocking him, she had created this new account and reached out to tell him it was her. She explained that I had forced her to block him but she didn't want to stop talking. Jeremy had been understanding and told her to do whatever she needed to do to keep her marriage stable while they figured things out. The messages were devastating to read. Nicole told Jeremy she loved him and had never stopped loving him. She said being married to me was comfortable but not exciting, and that she felt alive when she talked to him. Jeremy said he felt the same way and that they were meant to be together. He said he had grown up and was ready to give her the relationship she deserved. They had been making plans to meet in person. Nicole had a work conference coming up in 2 weeks in a city where Jeremy lived, and they were planning to spend the weekend together. She told him she would tell me she was networking and attending conference events, but really she would be with him. They discussed hotels, what they would do together, and how excited they were to finally be alone. Jeremy also messaged her about leaving me. He said if things went well during their weekend together, maybe it was time for her to file for divorce and be with him. Nicole responded saying she was scared but that she was starting to think he was right. She said she couldn't live the rest of her life wondering what could have been with him. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to myself. Then I carefully closed the laptop and returned it to her bag. I didn't confront Nicole immediately because I wanted to talk to my attorney first and make sure I had a plan. The next day, I met with Richard and showed him the messages. He said this was clear evidence of an ongoing affair and that it would be helpful in the divorce proceedings. He advised me to continue documenting but to be careful not to do anything that could be construed as stalking or invasion of privacy. He said the fact that she had given me permission to check her accounts and had then created secret accounts to circumvent that agreement showed a pattern of deception that would work in my favor. I went home that evening and confronted Nicole with printed copies of the messages. Her face went white when she saw them. She tried to claim it wasn't what it looked like, that she was just talking to Jeremy as a friend and the romantic language was just them being nostalgic about their past relationship. I asked her about the hotel reservations and the plans to spend the conference weekend with him. She couldn't explain that away. She started crying and admitted she had made a terrible mistake. She said she had been planning to cancel the meetup and that she hadn't actually been planning to sleep with him. She said she was just living in a fantasy and hadn't meant to hurt me. I told her I was done. I said she had been given a clear choice 2 months ago, and she had chosen to lie to me instead of being honest about what she really wanted. I said I had spent 2 months working on our marriage and going to therapy while she was planning to cheat on me at her conference. I told her I was filing for divorce and she needed to move out. Nicole panicked and begged me to reconsider. She said she would cut off Jeremy for real this time and prove she was committed to our marriage. She said she had been weak and stupid but she loved me and wanted to stay together. She offered to quit her job so she couldn't go to the conference, to give me passwords to everything, to do anything I asked. I told her it was too late. I said she had shown me exactly who she was and what she was capable of. I said I couldn't spend the rest of my life wondering if she was telling the truth or creating new secret accounts. I told her I deserved better than to be someone's backup plan while she chased after a man who had cheated on her repeatedly. She moved out that weekend to stay with her mother. I filed for divorce the following Monday. Nicole tried to fight it at first, wanting to go to mediation and work things out, but I was firm in my decision. My attorney made it clear that we had evidence of her affair and that fighting the divorce would only make things messier and more expensive for her. Update 2. The divorce proceedings revealed even more about Nicole's relationship with Jeremy, and the consequences for both of them were more severe than either had anticipated. During discovery, we subpoenaed Nicole's phone records and found that she and Jeremy had been talking on the phone for hours at a time, often late at night when she claimed to be working or stressed and needed alone time. The phone records also showed that Nicole had been visiting Jeremy in person during some of her supposed work trips. One trip where she claimed to be at a client meeting across the state actually placed her in Jeremy's city for 3 days. She had been physically cheating on me for at least 2 months before she ever asked for the hall pass. When confronted with this evidence, Nicole's attorney advised her to stop fighting and accept a fair settlement. The revelation that she had been physically unfaithful, not just emotionally, changed the dynamic of the divorce significantly. In our state, adultery could affect the division of assets and spousal support, and Nicole's attorney knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. Nicole signed the divorce papers 6 weeks after I filed. She got to keep her car and her personal belongings, but I got the house and the majority of our savings. She also had to pay her own legal fees. The divorce was finalized quickly because there were no children involved and Nicole had no grounds to dispute the settlement given her documented infidelity. During this time, Nicole had officially started dating Jeremy. She moved into an apartment near him and posted photos on social media of them together, looking happy and in love. Her friends were commenting about how great they looked together and how wonderful it was that they had found their way back to each other. Nicole was living her fantasy, and I tried not to let it bother me. But the fantasy started crumbling almost immediately. About 2 months after our divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Jeremy had already been caught cheating on Nicole. A woman named Lisa had messaged Nicole with screenshots showing that Jeremy had been on dating apps the entire time he and Nicole were supposedly working on their relationship. He had been telling multiple women that he was single and looking for something serious. When Nicole confronted him, Jeremy apparently admitted that he wasn't ready to be exclusive but thought they had an open relationship since they had gotten together while she was still married to me. He said if she could cheat on her husband with him, surely she understood that he wasn't the monogamous type. He tried to flip it back on her, saying she couldn't expect loyalty from him when she herself had been disloyal to her marriage. Nicole was devastated. She realized that Jeremy hadn't actually changed at all, and that his apologies and promises had been manipulations to get her back into his life. He had never intended to be faithful to her. He just wanted to win her back as some kind of ego boost, to prove he could steal her away from her marriage. She tried to stay with him and work it out, but Jeremy was barely trying to hide his other relationships anymore. He would cancel plans with her at the last minute to see other women. He would openly flirt with women in front of her. He told her she was being too needy and controlling when she asked for basic respect and commitment. Nicole's friends started questioning her choices. Several of them had been supportive when she left me for Jeremy, believing her story that our marriage had been unhappy and she had found her soulmate. But now they were watching her be treated poorly by the same man who had cheated on her years ago, and they were losing sympathy. Some of them reached out to apologize to me, saying they had believed Nicole's narrative but now realized there was more to the story. Nicole's mother called me about 4 months after the divorce. She apologized for encouraging Nicole to pursue her feelings for Jeremy and said she had been wrong. She told me she had always liked me and thought I was a good husband to her daughter. She said watching Nicole throw away our marriage for a man who clearly didn't respect her was heartbreaking, and she wished Nicole had listened to her when she advised against it. Her mother also revealed something interesting. Nicole had apparently confessed that the hall pass request wasn't spontaneous. Jeremy had specifically told her to ask for it. He had been coaching her on how to manipulate me into accepting their relationship. He told her that if she approached it as a one-time thing for closure, I might be understanding and give her permission. Then once she had been with him, she could claim the feelings were too strong and ask for an open marriage or eventually leave me. The whole thing had been orchestrated by Jeremy as a way to gradually steal her from me while avoiding the label of homewrecker. He thought if I gave permission, he could pursue Nicole without guilt and without her feeling like she had betrayed her marriage. When I refused and demanded she choose, it had thrown off their plan, so they just went behind my back instead. Hearing this from her mother made me realize how close I had come to being manipulated into accepting an ongoing affair disguised as a hall pass. If I had agreed to let Nicole sleep with Jeremy once, there's no doubt they would have continued seeing each other and I would have been slowly gaslit into accepting more and more until the marriage dissolved on their terms rather than mine. Meanwhile, my own life was improving dramatically. I threw myself into my work and received a promotion to lead architect at my company. I started working out regularly and picked up hobbies I had abandoned during my marriage. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with and started going to social events again. About 5 months after the divorce, I met someone named Sophia at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was a graphic designer who had recently moved to the area for work. We hit it off immediately and exchanged numbers. We started dating casually, taking things slowly since I was still processing my divorce. Sophia was everything Nicole wasn't. She was honest and direct about her feelings. She introduced me to her friends and family early on. She was genuinely interested in my life and my passions. There were no games, no manipulation, no hidden agendas. Being with her reminded me what a healthy relationship was supposed to feel like. I told Sophia about Nicole and Jeremy early in our relationship because I wanted to be transparent about my baggage. She was understanding and appreciated my honesty. She said she had been through a difficult breakup herself and understood the importance of rebuilding trust. We agreed to take things slow and communicate openly about our feelings and concerns. Update 3. 8 months after my divorce from Nicole, karma finally caught up with her in spectacular fashion. Jeremy had gotten another woman pregnant, a woman named Crystal who he had been seeing on and off for several months while also dating Nicole. Crystal reached out to Nicole through social media to inform her that she was carrying Jeremy's child and that he had been lying to both of them about being exclusive. Nicole was shattered. She had wasted almost a year chasing a fantasy with Jeremy, destroyed her marriage, and ended up being cheated on anyway by the same man who had cheated on her before. She posted a vague message on social media about betrayal and learning painful lessons, and her friends were supportive, but I could tell from the comments that many of them were thinking she should have seen this coming. Jeremy apparently chose to be with Crystal and their baby, which meant Nicole lost him too. She was single, living in an expensive apartment she could barely afford on her salary alone, and dealing with the reputation damage from having left her marriage for a serial cheater. Her work performance had suffered during all the relationship drama, and she was placed on a performance improvement plan by her employer. Nicole tried to reach out to me several times during this period. She sent long text messages apologizing for everything and saying she had made the biggest mistake of her life. She said she had thrown away a good marriage for a fantasy and she would do anything to make it right. She asked if we could meet for coffee to talk. I didn't respond to her messages. I had moved on with my life and had no interest in revisiting that painful chapter. My therapist Dr. Harrison had helped me understand that Nicole's attempts to reconnect were about her own regret and loneliness, not about genuinely wanting to repair things with me. She wanted to undo her mistakes, but life doesn't work that way. Sophia and I had been dating for 6 months at this point, and things were going wonderfully. We had taken a trip together, she had met my family and friends, and we were talking about moving in together. I was happier than I had been in years, possibly happier than I had ever been during my marriage to Nicole. Nicole found out about Sophia through mutual friends and apparently had a breakdown. According to her mother, who still occasionally checked in on me, Nicole was devastated to see me moving on and thriving while her own life was falling apart. She had convinced herself that I would be waiting for her if things didn't work out with Jeremy, and discovering that I had found someone else shattered that delusion. Her mother told me that Nicole had finally started taking responsibility for her actions and was in therapy working through her issues. She had ended up moving back home with her parents because she couldn't afford her apartment anymore. She had taken a demotion at work to a less stressful position with lower pay. Her friend group had largely abandoned her because they were tired of the drama and watching her make poor choices. The most satisfying moment came about 10 months after the divorce. I ran into Nicole at a grocery store. She looked tired and unhappy, much different from the glowing photos she had been posting with Jeremy months earlier. She tried to talk to me, starting with small talk about how I'd been and what I'd been up to. I was polite but brief, telling her I was doing well and was in a happy relationship. She teared up and said she was glad I was happy, that I deserved it. Then she apologized again for everything, saying she had been stupid and selfish and had thrown away the best thing that ever happened to her. She said she understood if I hated her, but she wanted me to know she was truly sorry. I told her I didn't hate her, that I had processed my anger and moved on. I said I hoped she learned from the experience and would treat her next partner better. Then I excused myself and left. As I walked away, I felt nothing but relief that I was no longer tied to someone so willing to throw away something real for a destructive fantasy. Sophia was waiting in the car, and when I told her I had just run into Nicole, she asked if I was okay. I realized that I genuinely was okay. Seeing Nicole didn't bring back the pain or anger or regret. It just reminded me of how far I had come and how much better my life was now. Final update. It's been a full year since Nicole asked for that hall pass, and I want to provide a final update on where everyone ended up. Sophia and I recently got engaged. I proposed during a weekend trip to the mountains, and she said yes immediately. We're planning a small wedding next spring with close friends and family. My brother Lucas, who helped me through the divorce, will be my best man. Sophia has been everything I needed in a partner. She's supportive, honest, and genuinely invested in our relationship. We communicate openly about everything, including our fears and insecurities. I've learned to trust again, though I'm more careful and observant now. The experience with Nicole taught me the importance of paying attention to red flags and not ignoring my instincts when something feels off. My career continues to thrive. I received another promotion and am now a senior architect managing a team of developers. My boss has commented multiple times on how my performance has improved over the past year, and I've been given several high-profile projects. The stress of my failing marriage had been affecting my work more than I realized, and removing that toxic element from my life has allowed me to excel professionally. As for Nicole, according to the occasional updates I hear through mutual acquaintances, she's still struggling. She left her sales job entirely and is working as an administrative assistant for a small company, making significantly less money than she used to. She's still living with her parents and dating occasionally but hasn't found anyone serious. Her reputation in our social circle never really recovered from the affair and the messy divorce. Jeremy moved away with Crystal and their baby to start fresh in another state. Crystal's family apparently wanted them far away from his past drama, and Jeremy agreed to move to salvage their relationship. Nicole posted one sad message about endings and new beginnings around the time he left, and several of her friends commented with supportive messages, but it was clear everyone knew she had brought this on herself. The most interesting development came from Nicole's mother about 2 months ago. She called to congratulate me on my engagement to Sophia after seeing it announced on social media. During our conversation, she revealed that Nicole had written me a letter but was too afraid to send it. Her mother had read it and thought I should know what it said. According to her mother, Nicole had finally acknowledged in therapy that her obsession with Jeremy had been about unresolved issues with her father, who had abandoned their family when Nicole was young. Jeremy's pattern of being unreliable and unfaithful had actually felt familiar to Nicole, and she had been unconsciously drawn to him because she was trying to fix something from her childhood. She realized she had sacrificed a healthy, stable relationship with me for an unhealthy one that replicated her trauma. Her mother said Nicole had written in the letter that she understood now why I couldn't forgive her, and that she was grateful I had refused the hall pass because it had forced her to face consequences that ultimately led her to therapy and self-awareness. She said she wished she had appreciated me when she had the chance but understood that ship had sailed. She wanted me to be happy with Sophia and hoped I would have the marriage and family she had been too broken to give me. I thanked her mother for sharing but didn't ask for the letter. Understanding Nicole's psychological motivations was interesting, but it didn't change what she had done or how she had treated me. I hoped she continued working on herself and eventually found peace, but that was no longer my concern. Kevin and Amanda, who had supported me through the darkest days of the divorce, are thrilled about my engagement to Sophia. Amanda told me she knew from the first time we all hung out together that Sophia was special and that she could see how genuinely happy I was. Kevin joked that I dodged a bullet with Nicole and found a treasure with Sophia, and honestly, that's exactly how I feel. I've learned some valuable lessons from this experience. First, when someone shows you who they are through their actions and requests, believe them. Nicole showed me through her hall pass request that she valued her fantasy with Jeremy more than her commitment to me, and I was right to take that seriously. Second, there's no such thing as a hall pass in a healthy marriage. The concept itself is a symptom of deeper problems, and agreeing to it doesn't solve anything, it just delays the inevitable. If your partner needs to sleep with someone else to get them out of their system, the relationship is already over. Third, people who cheat rarely change unless they do serious work on themselves. Jeremy cheated on Nicole before, and he cheated on her again. She should have known better, but she was blinded by fantasy and nostalgia. Sometimes people need to learn hard lessons through painful experiences. Finally, the best revenge is living well. I didn't need to actively destroy Nicole's life or seek vengeance. I just needed to remove her from my life, work on myself, and build something better. Her own choices led to her downfall, and my thriving without her was consequence enough. I'm grateful for how everything turned out, even though the process was painful. If Nicole hadn't asked for that hall pass, I might have stayed in a marriage with someone who didn't truly value me. I might never have met Sophia or discovered what a genuinely healthy relationship feels like. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes, and that's definitely true in my case. To anyone reading this who is facing a similar situation, my advice is simple: respect yourself enough to walk away when someone shows you they don't respect your relationship. Don't agree to hall passes or open relationships unless that's genuinely what you want, not what you're accepting to keep a partner who's already checked out. And trust that there are people out there who will value and cherish you the way you deserve. I'm marrying Sophia in 6 months, and I couldn't be more excited about our future together. We're talking about buying a house and starting a family. I have my career, my health, my friends, and the love of an incredible woman. Nicole thought she was trading up when she asked for that hall pass, but in reality, she was trading everything for nothing. I'm the one who traded up, and I've never been happier.